doing, press secretary briefings to the special media people who are the influencers.
Monday, April 28th marked the first conference specifically directed at what Leavitt calls the new media. April 29th again saw Leavitt giving two different briefings, one to the regular media and one to one of these small handpicked groups of conservative influencers.
Briefings, right? Like it almost feels like state-run media.
The White House is crawling with kids.
Karoline Leavitt sidelined the press, invited TikTokers instead. And now, a GOP strategist just called her press briefings state-run propaganda.
2.0 is the people that he's surrounding himself with. Before it was all Republicans, now it seems...
This isn't media strategy. This is controlled messaging inside the White House. And even her own party is panicking. Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary in US history, has done something no administration has tried before. She's replaced the traditional press corps with a hand-picked group of online influencers, most of them loyal, most of them uncritical. To some, it's a genius move, cutting out a hostile media and going straight to the people. To others, it's a silent coup against journalistic accountability.
Influencers, which is crazy, by the way.
But when a GOP strategist sounds the alarm, when someone inside the party calls this state-controlled media in disguise, you know this story runs deeper than politics. In a rare moment of public dissent within the Republican Party, GOP strategist Brittany Martinez took direct aim at the White House press operation, specifically at Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. Appearing in a Forbes newsroom interview, Martinez didn't hold back. She described Leavitt's strategy of replacing traditional press briefings with sessions exclusively for pro-Trump influencers as state-controlled media in disguise, a loaded accusation in a country where press freedom is a democratic cornerstone. Her criticism went beyond optics. According to Martinez, removing the traditional press from access and accountability while inviting social media influencers who are unlikely to challenge the administration fundamentally distorts the role of journalism in American governance. What's left, she argued, is a curated echo chamber where difficult questions vanish, replaced by curated loyalty. But her concern wasn't rooted in anti-Trump sentiment. In fact, Martinez's message was directed inward, to her own party. She warned that if the GOP continues to speak only to its loyal base, ignoring undecided or disaffected voters, especially in a fragile economy, they risk isolating themselves and losing ground in future elections. Her comments revealed a deeper fracture within the Republican Party, a growing unease over the Trump administration's communications strategy and what it signals for the health of internal dialogue. To Martinez, the danger isn't just strategic failure, it's structural. Surrounding Trump with nothing but agreement might feel stable now, but it could be a long-term liability the party cannot afford. To understand the controversy, we need to examine what Karoline Leavitt has actually done. At just 27 years old, Leavitt has become not only the youngest White House press secretary in US history, but also the most unconventional. Instead of holding traditional press, briefings with legacy media like the New York Times, CNN, or Reuters, she's hosted private, invitation-only sessions with social media influencers. Mostly young, Trump-aligned TikTokers and YouTubers like Link Lauren, known online as MAGA Malfoy. According to reports from People magazine, these briefings feature no press credentials, no seasoned journalists, and no difficult policy questions. Instead, they're media-friendly, visually polished, and intentionally viral. The influencers film content during the sessions and distribute it to millions of followers, amplifying Trump's message on platforms where traditional media barely registers. Leavitt's team argues this isn't spin, it's strategy. Young Americans aren't watching cable news, she said in a recent statement. They're watching reels and shorts. If we want to reach them, we have to go where they are. On the surface, this logic is sound. A Pew Research study in 2024 found that nearly 60% of Gen Z consume news primarily through social media, often through personalities, not institutions. But the shift raises fundamental questions. These influencer sessions lack editorial standards. There's no expectation of neutrality, no fact-checking, and no adversarial pushback. The questions are often soft, the tone overwhelmingly favorable, and the content functions more like branded entertainment than journalism. What Leavitt has done, effectively, is replace the Fourth Estate with a fan club, and in doing so, she's redrawn the boundary between public accountability and partisan storytelling. To some, it's smart media adaptation. To others, it's the beginning of a dangerous precedent. At first glance, Karoline Leavitt's pivot to social media influencers might appear to be nothing more than modern political marketing, an adaptation to a shifting media landscape. But a closer look reveals a deeper, more troubling dilemma. Has the White House simply embraced new platforms, or is it quietly abandoning accountability altogether? Supporters argue that Leavitt is doing what any effective communicator would, meeting people where they are. Platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are where younger voters live, think, and vote. In an era when trust in traditional media is historically low, using influencers as message carriers seems like a logical workaround. But that logic masks a dangerous trade-off. In the influencer model, access is granted not based on journalistic credibility, but on ideological alignment and online reach. The result? A controlled feedback loop. What media analysts call an information echo chamber. Influencers get exclusive content and access, provided they keep the tone positive. The administration, in turn, gets mass exposure without facing tough questions. There's no formal censorship, no journalist is jailed, no press badge is revoked, but in practice, only loyal voices are heard, and critical scrutiny fades into the background. According to Financial Times, some Republican strategists privately admit this strategy helps Trump avoid unscripted media disasters, but at the cost of transparency. One even warned that this model may condition the public to mistake curated content for genuine engagement. This isn't just a media strategy, it's a structural shift in how political power interfaces with the public. If the government can bypass critical media entirely and instead speak only through influencers it selects, the line between communication and propaganda becomes dangerously thin. The question isn't whether this tactic is legal. The question is, can democracy function when power no longer welcomes challenge? While the influencer briefing strategy may serve short-term goals, control the message, energize the base, it carries a risk that's far less visible but far more dangerous: strategic isolation. Brittany Martinez's warning wasn't just about optics or press freedom, it was about blind spots. When a political leader surrounds themselves exclusively with loyalists, whether staffers, spokespeople, or influencers, they lose access to dissent. And without dissent, you lose perspective. The GOP has faced this risk before. In 2020, internal advisors reportedly hesitated to challenge Trump's instincts, even when polling showed declining support among suburban moderates and independents. The result was a messaging machine that fired on all cylinders, but only in one direction. That same pattern now seems to be repeating, with Leavitt's influencer ecosystem acting as the new echo chamber. By filtering out traditional media and tough questions, Trump may be robbing himself of a crucial feedback mechanism. The influencer model may boost morale inside the base, but it does little to attract undecided voters or address real-world policy concerns from swing constituencies. And with economic indicators showing signs of volatility, rising food prices, unstable energy costs, and a potential recession on the horizon, Trump's inner circle may need to face tougher realities than TikTok can reflect. Martinez put it plainly: if we only speak to ourselves, we lose the ability to govern everyone else. This isn't just a theoretical warning. In the 2024 midterms, Republicans underperformed in several key districts, where younger, independent voters felt ignored or dismissed. If the same strategy continues in 2028, Trump could win the internet and still lose the country. In politics, power isn't just about how loudly you speak, it's about who's still listening. Who gets to ask the questions? To her supporters, this is a communications revolution. It's agile, disruptive, and perfectly tuned to a digital-first electorate. It bypasses what they see as a biased, elitist press and gives the microphone to real people with real audiences. From that perspective, it's not just smart politics, it's media liberation. But to critics, this is something far more dangerous, a subtle, sophisticated form of information control. It's not authoritarian in the old-fashioned sense. There are no government censors, no blacklisted reporters, no forced silence. But there's a chilling efficiency to it. Difficult questions are quietly avoided, dissent is crowded out by algorithmic praise, and accountability is drowned beneath waves of curated content. And here lies the paradox. In the name of reaching the people, power has stopped answering to them. If influencer briefings become the norm, if loyal media replaces critical media, not just under Trump, but as a precedent for future administrations, then what happens to public oversight? What happens to dissent, to investigative journalism, to uncomfortable truths? We are not watching the collapse of freedom of the press. We are watching its quiet replacement. So the real question isn't whether Karoline Leavitt is good at her job. It's this. Are we witnessing the future of political communication or the beginning of a controlled narrative where only one voice gets to speak?